Just office.
Well, I don't want to record it.
You don't want to record.
Not right now, I don't, but
After this, it's just office chairs. These are all we have. Well, I guess we got some other meeting chairs too.
Relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency signed into law June 16, 2020. The Yarmouth Community and Economic Development Committee will hold a public meeting on Tuesday, June 27th at 4 p.m. The meeting room at the Yarmouth DPW Building, 74 Town Brook Road, West Yarmouth. The public is welcome to attend either in person or via the alternative public access provided on the notice of meeting available on the Town of Yarmouth website. With that, may I have a roll call, please?
Peter Slovak.
Danielle Newcomb, Maria Marasco, Courtney Butler.
Joe Gibbs.
Steve O'Neill.
Joe
And Joe Manning. We're all here. Okay. With that said, we'll start off with the first item on the agenda, which is the second review of the public improvement applications for physical improvement money. And up first is Brittany from the Conservation Commission. Come on up.
Hello,
Hi, Brittany.
I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with these. Do you want me to give an overview or just want to ask questions?
Why don't you do a quick overview for us and then we'll ask the questions. Now, are you talking about the signs or the invasive?
I'll do invasive species management first.
Okay,
So this is a project to request funding to initiate a 3-year Phragmites management program. And Phragmites grows in our coastal areas adjacent to salt marshes, and it usually blocks some of our best vistas in town. We've done a 3-year management for Phragmites removal in the past in both different locations and similar locations. The locations that we're continuing on are proposing for additional areas in those and also follow-up management and spot treatment. Phragmites is a pretty tenacious invasive species and requires usually 5 years to get it under control. So that's why we're adding on to areas that we've treated in the past. We're also including an additional newer location. We're proposing the Run/Curl Pond. This would improve vistas in the area for everyone going to Smuggler's Beach and parking for the hotels over there. So we also did get a match funding from the Conservation Fund of $10,000. The total project cost would be $40,000. So we're asking for $30,000 from the Public Improvements Tourism Revenue Fund. There are other grant funding opportunities that we could pursue, including CPA grant funding. And sometimes the Barnstable County has an invasive species program funding, but sometimes they don't. Those usually come out this spring. So we would be anticipating being able to get additional funding for this come springtime. We would have to be contracting out with certified pesticide applicators. In order to complete this, we would be using a combination of mechanical and herbicide treatments. Phragmites does not respond to only mechanical treatments, and herbicide is necessary to get control of this invasive species. That's pretty much an overview. I would ask any questions. Answer any questions.
When is the Phragmites treatable?
The best time to treat Phragmites is the end of summer, early fall, because it's a foliar treatment. That's the time when the plant is moving the sugars down into the root system. So it translocates the herbicide down into the roots to kill the entire plant.
Any state funding available that you could find?
It's not for such small scale removals. The CZM funding is usually for stormwater, and invasive species management such as Phragmites doesn't qualify for a lot of their grants.
And could you bundle it? Is there anything else that it could be bundled with to get the eligible for state funding? You thought about that?
I'm not sure. I think there might be one location where we could include a stormwater, but it's not one of the locations I've listed.
Any other questions? For Brittany? Brittany, this ties into a larger program that you're doing. You've been doing this for a while now.
We don't currently have a larger invasive species management program, but we can initiate one. It's one of the top, goals of the open space and recreation plan is addressing invasive species around town in our conservation areas. So this would be the Phragmites focused portion of that, which is a large portion of it. A lot of the upland land species can take different types of treatment, and are more successfully managed without herbicides. So this would be a large portion that we would need herbicides.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, and I saw Kathy shaking her head over there. So this is tied into the open space and rec plan. So that's what I want.
Invasive species management is definitely one of the goals.
Yep.
Of the survey.
Okay. All right. And in the spring, is there a good opportunity to get additional funding for this, or?
From CPA, I would think there is a good opportunity. My predecessor has gotten funding from them before,
Okay.
previous project.
So I have two more questions. So since this is a Cape-wide issue, are we taking any regional, or has the town, to your knowledge, taken any regional approach such as either the Cape Cod Commission or intergovernmental agreements with our neighbors to try to mitigate this as a whole problem?
That's a good question. I am not sure to my knowledge, but I do know that a lot of the tidal restoration projects going around the Cape, they do have a positive impact on the Phragmites because it has such a low salt tolerance. So opening up tidally restricted areas to more of a saline flow has a positive impact on. So it will diminish Phragmites in those areas. So that's the only thing I'm aware of. I know other towns are addressing the issue in a case by case basis, just like we are. And I'm not sure if there's, like, for our neighbors, Barnstable and Dennis, I'm not sure if there's areas that we could work on together.
Yeah, I was just in the back of my mind is so like when we dredged, try to have the same boat in around the same time.
Yeah.
That sort of collaboration and again, a regional approach. So if you haven't called the Cape Cod Commission,
Okay.
yeah, I would just suggest, because they're always eager to find someone,
Yeah.
and but that would be helpful. Great, thank you.
Okay, Joe, any questions?
You asking me, Steve?
Yes.
No.
Okay. Any other questions for Brittany? Joe?
Is there any part of your budget dedicated to this? Conservation?
The conservation fund, $10,000 is coming from the conservation fund for this project. That has been voted on to attribute to this project. I think they would be willing to do a little bit more if they're unable to get the full.
Okay. Good. Brittany, thank you very much. Good job.
I just pointed out, are we gonna take this under advisement and deal with them as a group? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Can I move on to my?
Yes, please. Thank you.
This one's a little more straightforward. A lot of our conservation areas are unnamed and they do not have trail systems running through them, and so they're not regularly maintained. Although a lot of them are located in areas of sensitive resource areas, there's different types of wetlands and vernal pool habitats, causing endangered species. So there are some signs that are unreadable and damaged that are in very few of these areas. And when we did a vernal pool study this spring, we thought that a lot of them could use more signage to educate the community about what the purpose of that parcel of land is and what can and cannot be done there. We're seeing a lot of dumping of lawn debris and landscape debris in these sensitive habitats and wetland environments. And so we just wanted to put up signs, about 15 locations, all of our potential vernal pools and then 7 more. Just letting the public know what that parcel of land is, who owns it, and what is the best practices for enjoying it, mostly just walking. So the signs would just say Town of Yarmouth Conservation Area, sensitive habitat, no dumping.
Any questions? So I have a couple, these tie back to the open space and rec plan.
Yeah, a lot of the issues that people had in response to the open space plan was for trail marker updates and signage. So we are implementing a lot of wayfinding trail markers in our conservation lands that have trails. Since these don't, it's valuable for the people in town to know that they exist, that they're owned by conservation, and that they have sensitive resource areas on them.
Is there maps of these areas?
There is a map on our website of all the conservation lands.
yeah.
It's zoomed out to all of Yarmouth, so it's a little bit tough to
To
see.
see?
But we own a lot of land and a lot of it is, the only purpose is for
Conservation.
resources.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not for really, they're not actively managed.
Yeah.
It's just for open space and habitat protection.
Yeah.
So
Just a couple of things on the cost for this thing. It's 130 for the sign, for each sign. For a
yeah,
24 by 24 inch sign. That doesn't include if it needs a post to put in. And so it could be more than that.
I accounted for the posts separately.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was able to, I got a late estimate back, that did give me approximately $85 per sign instead, that I got 2 days ago. So that could be better.
That's okay. That's
Yeah.
a good thing. That's a very good thing. And my last question is, the town can't do any of these signs, a 24 by 24 inch sign?
I did.
I did read somewhere that they can do some, but not all of them.
Yeah, I
So-
did contact Ron Ramirez and he said that they're not able to do signs in the quantity and in the time frame that we're looking for. They may be able to do half of them in the winter. But that wouldn't help us for the most, the critical time this summer. We're trying to get them in, but that is an option.
Right, so we could do some this summer and then the balance we could do.
Yep, we can do probably half and get out in the winter.
All right, that's good. That's good. Any other questions? Thank you, Brittany. Very good. Appreciate it.
I guess.
Joe, do you have any questions? I'm sorry.
Yeah, just one. Karen, do we have a wayfinding plan? I thought there was a wayfinding project that was being
Yep.
worked on.
There is a wayfinding, the answer is yes. You guys,
Thought we tabled
offered
it.
up $55,000 in matching funds sometime last year. I just found out today from the state that we've been granted an extension. It's something that kind of fell off the radar a bit. And we'll be kind of re-upping effort on that. I've been talking with Bill Scott about how to strategize on that one.
So to what level of comprehensiveness would that enable us to wayfind? Would everyone get what they want through that?
Oh, no, the $100,000 was to develop a plan for the wayfinding. So no. The next step would be kind of carrying it out and implementing signs probably on a phased basis. Because it would be, we probably wouldn't need to do them all at once anyways. But it didn't include new signage.
I was just thinking about some previous conversations, and these are just anecdotal, that we had talked about, trucks having different logos on them and
Yeah,
kind
there's
hodgepodge.
a whole conversation going on. There's, we actually have a representative in the room from the Town Seal Committee. George Slam is here with his historical commission request. But there's a separate committee in place looking at the town seal, which is maybe the conversation that you've heard about, and whether or not the town seal should be updated and changed. And then to, how do you go about rolling out a new town seal where it's something that's so incredibly pervasive. And again, I think that would be through a phased approach, really just on an as needed approach. When we need a new truck and we need to do new lettering, that's when we put the new seal on.
Well, that's assuming that we get a seal.
Right, yeah,
I don't really want to advocate one way or the other. So wayfinding is just a plan.
Okay,
Just put money into it, right?
yep, that's correct.
And there's no time frame on it yet because you're gonna regroup with Bill.
That's right. But we did get a 1-year extension, which was very generous.
Can I have a question on the wayfinding?
Mhm.
Is that for the whole town?
That was,
Okay.
the original request was to come up with a plan for the entire town.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Brittany? Not, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Okay.
Brittany.
Who else is? Kathy, you wanna go? You gotta get back to town hall too, right?
She never leaves,
No.
right?
Yeah, I have a copy. It seems like that someday. I'm not sure I know everybody. I'm Kathy Williams, the town planner.
Hi, I'm Courtney Bowler.
Courtney, okay. I know you. Danielle Newcomb. And I know him vaguely. I don't know how familiar people are with the Riverwalk Park project, but what the request was for tourism revenue preservation funds was to help partially fund some of the infrastructure for the event space. The Riverwalk Park is being proposed at 669 Route 28. It's next to the river, Parker's River, across from Captain Parker's restaurant. We're going to have a wonderful park here, including a boardwalk that you're not seeing extending over here. But there's a bunch of different aspects to this. We're going to have a restroom, we're going to have parking, we're going to have a playground area. We're also going to have the ability to have a walking area where you can have artist shanties with maybe some public art that we can add in the future, along with the kayak launch here. And then the big open space here is for periodic special events. We've had some various special events there, but really haven't had any infrastructure. So everybody has to bring in generators for their lights and for all of their electricity, and it makes it a little bit difficult. So what we're asking for is there's a bunch of infrastructure improvements that are being proposed as part of the project. That's really going to be bringing, the biggest one is bringing 3-phase power to the temporary stage area. We did talk to some event sponsors and they really felt like for anything, even if you're gonna have a periodic concert or something, you really need 3-phase power, which is more expensive to bring in. And obviously we also need to have water and electricity for any vendors or food trucks that might be around in an event space. And then an upper area here, in addition to this parking, would be some additional parking on the lawn that would be allowed. And we have a nice loop that goes all the way around the event space. So what we're really asking for is some help with the infrastructure for the event spaces, to really kind of like an economic driver to bring people to the town of Yarmouth. And once they get here for a special event, they go to the restaurant, they stay in our hotels, and really kind of help revitalize this area in the town of Yarmouth. We have made phenomenal strides in our permitting. We've actually gotten all of our conservation. We recently got our MIPA environmental impact report certificate, which was huge. And we are working on submitting, unfortunately, because we're an environmental justice population area, it's an automatic environmental impact report, and all automatic environmental impact reports are automatic DRIs through the Cape Cod Commission. So because this isn't this is a great project, so we're going to be applying for an exemption at the end of the
That's
week.
what I was gonna ask you.
So we're going to be applying for an exemption that has been drafted, and I need to look at that, and hopefully that will go in before the holiday season. So I know you guys were interested in some other funding opportunities here. This is also in the open space and recreation plan, and as well as a long-standing goal of the Board of Selectmen. When we did ask CPA, and we were graciously at town meeting, got $6 million, 3 million as a direct funding, and then 3 million as a bond authorization. And at that time, we basically said, we're going to work really hard to see if we can't find some other funding sources in order to keep that bonding amount as low as possible. So that makes for more money for all these other great projects that CPA can fund. So that's why, part of the reason why we're here, this funding source was mentioned in the CPA application, but we have also looked at a bunch of other grant funding sources. One of it is through the Office of Fishing and Boating Access. And we met with their director. Unfortunately, they don't have a ton of money. They have between $125,000 and $150,000, but they come with a lot of restrictions. That's a problem with grants. They sound great, but they also come with a lot of restrictions and a lot of rules. He who has the goal makes the rules. So we have to be careful that we're not doing something that's going to encumber us against doing something else we want, especially with regard to the event space, which is something that's a little bit unusual for a general park. So they wanted to have no kayak rentals. We were looking to have a kayak vendor there, and they also really wanted us to have 10 dedicated parking spaces to the kayak launch. We met with the drive-in site utilization committee. We're still hashing out whether we really want to be applying for that grant. I did some further investigation through Mass Trails to see if we could get some of the trails and walking paths. They don't fund trails within parks themselves. It might be good for future funding for signage related to trail directions inside of conservation areas, because that was one of the other things that came up out of the open space and rec plannings. Once you get in there, you really don't know where you're going unless you're familiar with it or you have that great handy dandy map actually with you. The big thing that we're kind of looking at right now is having a park grant. In order to apply for a park grant, you have to have a current open space and recreation plan. That's why we've all been frantically working on trying to develop a draft so that we can submit it to the state prior to the park grant deadline of July 13th. I still have some questions about that with regard to making sure that we're not encumbering the whole property. Right now, we have a land water conservation fund grant, but it only impacts the project area. So it doesn't impact our event space. So that's important too, just carving out the area. So if we can keep it within that area, we might be able to do that. But we're only going to have a draft of the report able to be submitted. So I need to coordinate with Melissa Cryan to see if that's something that would be acceptable for them. And then another big thing that the drive-in site utilization committee was looking at was possible donations and naming rights. We had a great meeting. We've talked with nonprofit Community Visions who helped fund the LaRusso Lodge. We just kind of need to put this together a little bit. I'd like to actually have faith with town council on this whole thing, and maybe even David Reed, who's an attorney in town and happens to be on the drive-in site utilization committee, so it's a great resource about that, and then come up with some type of proposal to the board of selectmen on how we might be able to collect those donations and offer naming rights to various components, whether it's the event space itself, whether it's the kayak launch or the playground. Wouldn't it be great to have like the WIDA on the pirate ship on the playground and, maybe get some funding associated with that. That's kind of
Any
in
questions
a nutshell.
for Kathy?
No, but there is another funding opportunity. It's called Commonwealth Places under Mass Development. And it's not a lot, but it is something that Joe and Steve did look at previously. So anyway, it's a grant between $2,500 and $15,000 that this organization was looking into,
How much?
between 2,500 and 15,000 with a local match. Oh, wait a minute, strike that. Strike that.
It's more money.
Between $5,000 and $50,000, Kathy. Yeah, that's it. So it's to enhance public spaces, and I think, Joe, did you have additional information on the Commonwealth Places that might be helpful to Kathy?
I mean, I think in execution, I haven't seen the plan necessarily for this public performance space, but it sounds to me exactly what it is they're geared to fund. It's either an underutilized property or it's sort of a test proof of concept idea. And I think that stage that you're talking about, the temporary staging that would support either a musical performance or something along those lines, is exactly what they're hoping to help us to understand if it's going to be an economic driver or not. So yeah, I absolutely think that makes some sense.
Yeah, and the other piece is that unfortunately, it's part of this the state's one-stop application process. So, however, it just means we have to put letters of intent by December. So it gives you some breathing room. All right, and I'll connect you with the right people at Mass Development. All right. Okay.
Kathy,
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong. This is going to get funded either through the bond or through some other means, either through our committee or a combination. Is that what you said?
Well, we have many different funding sources. Most of it is from CPA funding from 3.7 million from 2019, 2021. We have the almost $1 million in the Land Water Conservation Fund grant. We have $1 million in the Seaport grant. We have $200,000 in the DCR Marine Park grant. We did get $500,000 in free cash at annual town meeting, in addition to the $6 million, the 3 and 3. with the bond.
Yeah, no, I mean, my question is absent of us taking any action or whatever, that they're still gonna run power and water to that site, right?
Yes, I mean, technically, based on the estimates that we've done so far, there should be sufficient funding. The problem is that the construction costs are so volatile right now. It's really difficult to know whether we're gonna have enough money. So, we'll probably end up bidding it with a base bid that we think that we are very comfortable knowing that we'll be able to construct it, and then adding on additive alternatives and different amenities to hopefully get as much as we can out of the project. Obviously, we're looking for the bones of everything. We want to get the whole loop in for the boardwalk. We want to get in all of, we actually have to get in things like parking and the restrooms and all the mitigation that we're doing on that site. That's really a site that we're doing a lot of ecological restoration on as part of all of our permitting requirements as well.
Just,
Thanks.
Kathy, there's a couple of new people. The planning for this and the permitting has been kind of the same type of effort, cobbling together funds, including some funding through the Tourism Revenue Preservation Fund.
Right.
Correct. You guys funded a sound study early on, and also I think we have like $97,000 to actually fund the design of a permitting for the event space. So it's very helpful because we didn't have enough money to sign the contract with the designer at the time, so it was very good.
Just so I understand, the 1.3 million that's listed, broken out in that.
Yep.
Is for water and power to the site.
Oh, I think it's for that
Right.
whole grass area.
The event space,
Yeah.
right? So, just so I understand, you have the resources, all those resources that you just went over, includes work for this, funding for this piece of it?
It does,
Okay.
but we did, as we move along, things come up.
I understand,
But we
understand.
do have a healthy 20% contingency, but I think we're kind of eating into it. I mean, we met with Eversource. And, that turned out to be another 2 or 3 additional underground vaults that they wanted, and those aren't cheap. So
Yeah.
as you kind of move along, and
Yeah.
even like some of the things in permitting, you kind of say, oh, well, we got to promise to do X in order to,
Nope.
to satisfy the permitting. So things might get added on that we are obligated to do.
Right. And so when are you going out to bid?
We hope to go out to bid this summer.
Okay.
We got to get the exemption. And
Right.
then we need to finalize with Chapter 91 and Army Corps.
So
kind of
this
ask
summer,
DOT.
July, August, September?
August, I think, probably. We're hoping to start construction this fall.
Okay, so you'll know what the cost is gonna be and what
Yes,
the
we will.
resources may have to, okay. Good, all right. Yeah, thank you.
Wow. Yeah. We got everybody part race today.
Am I on a roll?
Oh, that's bad.
Okay, what do we have next up? Who else is here?
You got Jeff
Jeff.
and George. Jeff has a number of items.
Yeah,
George
Jeff.
has one.
George, come on up. I'm getting right after Jeff. Jeff's gonna probably go to town.
Jeff has to get to town hall too. Oh, and Roby only, I'm sorry, Roby.
Thank you, George Slama from the Historical Commission. I'm the vice chair. And thank you for considering funding request. And in the application, I know there was some confusion and, with one of the handouts that said it was a CPA application. So the Historical Commission had done some brainstorming about a year and a half ago on all of the historical sites and potential sites and locations around the town where we could consider putting up signage. And clearly, the town has wonderful assets, but a number of those assets do not have signage. So we have people coming from all over the world, all over Massachusetts, and they get onto the Studebaker windmill. And yes, when the docents are there, they can get information, but for 9-10 months out of the year, people come and say, well, I wish I knew,
Where am I?
but what's the significance here? So the Historical Commission, created, a, feature board sign at the, Indian Memorial, on Indian Memorial Drive. And not sure if you had the opportunity to get on there and see that. So CPA funds in 2017. They refurbished and reset the stones, and there were no educational signage, and you know, a lot of the history was not known about the Indian Memorial. So we worked up the history and created a 3x2 sign. And in the handout, I submitted, you know, a copy of what that sign looks like. It's a 3 foot by 2 foot. So we know what the signage, how to build the signs now, and you can see here that it's a 3-panel sign. There was a little more cost in developing this because it was the first time we had done this. So we have the cost down, we know how to do it.
I don't think we have a picture of your sign.
Was that part of the,
Last.
so I guess I made
it's
the
last
mistake of
week.
assuming
Okay.
everybody had it. Do you want me
That's
to,
okay.
I can pull it up. If you'd like.
So
Thanks, Joe.
And here's the full scale sign, just in case, that's right. So, and you can see that, I mean, this is faded, so this was a proof. And this is what the sign looks like down at Indian Memorial Drive. And has the, you know, the history, Bob Kelly, who's on the Historical Commission and is a town historian. His cousin, Daniel Wing, built the Indian Memorial in 1881.
Wing it. Who knew?
And the reservation existed from 1713 to 1768. And then was dissolved, and all of the history is here for the native people.
So George, the design of the sign, my biggest pet peeve is that I don't see town of Yarmouth big enough, large enough to
Mhm.
impact me. And so in, I just want to raise that. I think
Mhm.
we really kind of need something that's cohesive, like on all the signs everywhere,
Mhm.
that generates an impact. But other than that, these are fabulous. So thank you very much
And the
for,
big point here is a QR code,
yeah, and
So-
that links to where?
the town,
Okay.
and it shows all of the information, all of the research and so forth. So
It's wonderful.
So the signs that we're recommending here, the Judah Baker Windmill, the Baxter Gristmill, will have a QR code, so people can go there. And we can only fit so much history here, but they can then go and learn a lot more, so.
So I have another question. So other than is this your entire wish list? Or this is and these are the only two you're asking?
So
for
what we've
right now?
done is
Or three?
yes, we've extracted out several. We have limited resources on the Historical Commission, so we've, plan to try to do 3 of the signs.
Okay. So you're looking for this committee for Judah Baker?
Yep.
Where's the Salt Works?
The Salt Works were up and down Bass River.
Right, but my house is on one of them.
Yeah.
Right, but
And
where you want to put that?
so we'd like to put it down at the Judah Baker Windmill also. So there'd be 2 signs
At Judah Baker
at the Judah Baker.
and obviously the Gristmill,
Yeah, and the
but they're
gristmill.
2 separate signs. Is that, am I reading
So,
it right?
so the gristmill would have one, and Judah Baker will have the 3x2, and then we will also have 2 18x12 signs. And
Different than the narrative?
no, there'll be narrative
Oh, there will.
and it'll, speak to the natural resources, the herring run, the larger sign will give the full history of the Baxter Gristmill, the major renovation that was done. So it'll be in the larger format.
And all with the QR code.
You bet.
Super.
So George, it's one big one at the windmill, not at the windmill, at the grist mill. and two smaller ones at the
That's correct.
windmill.
That's it. Well, two small ones at the grist mill and a large,
Oh, two small, so
so there'd be
how many
three.
total?
So it's three at the grist mill and two at Dudebaker.
Okay.
And the signs, one sign will deal with the salt works, which was a huge industry from just after the revolution up into the late 1800s. And the salt works came all the way up almost to where 28 is.
Mm.
I'm gonna donate you one. Top of a windmill, for your salt works, how's that?
Well, we'll take the money
Are
first.
they asking for the same amount that they were last week?
I don't think there's been any change.
All right,
George, the amount that you're asking for, Peter, what's the number?
94.76.
Mhm.
There's no way to know how many people go and visit the sites, right? Whether the QR code logs that in some way or.
The windmill, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. The windmill does a very good job
Yeah.
of, because they have docents that are
Mhm.
there. Keeping
How do you-
tabs on how many
do you
people are
track
there.
Well, good question, and I mean, it should be available on the website. If the QR code goes in, we could check with, IT and, get an answer to that
Do,
question.
do your docents do a head count?
I'm not sure, Karen.
I don't know for sure, and we don't, just to be clear, the Baxter Gristmill does not have docents.
Yes.
The Baxter
Mhm.
Gristmill's not open to the public
Mhm.
currently. But I know they keep tabs when people are there. How many, it's in the annual report that goes into
Mhm.
the
I
town.
was talking about Judah Baker. So.
Right, and they include a number annually on visitors there.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Joe? No questions. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, next up, is Lady with Jeff,
Roby,
Roby.
you wanna go?
Come on up.
Or Roby and Bill?
George.
Oh, or
Exactly.
do you want?
Yep.
Jeff?
Bill Benetti's actually going to be part of this presentation as well. We're working together, Department of Public Works and Natural Resources.
Right.
My name is Roby Whitehouse. I'm the Assistant Public Works Director.
I'm Bill Benetti, Natural Resource Director.
Okay.
Yeah, Bill.
So the impetus of the reasoning for asking for this was multiple complaints specifically about Colonial Acres Beach. The multitude of signs that just keep appearing and particularly in the pathway leading down to the beach. Now, we all know how important it is to have signs. We need to notify people about what's going on, but we also don't want there to be visual pollution. And our thought was that if we came up with a kiosk that would provide a consolidated location and perhaps not block the view, but also bring everything into one place, that it might satisfy the frustration from the beachgoers. And then we also identified a second location that would benefit. So the two locations were Colonial Beach, which is on Standish Way in West Yarmouth, and Bass Hole at Grays Beach, which is in Yarmouth Port. I provided in the original quote a quote of $7,507 and some images. I understand that there were questions about the actual dimensions and also the budget. So I'll speak to the dimensions. The dimensions are 7.25 inches deep. The width is 119 inches. The height is 82.5 inches, and the weight is 391 pounds. So it's a heavy unit. It is made out of common, and the reason for the price being a little bit higher is that the mounting of that particular unit needs to be specific to the beach area and being able to make sure that it is mounted appropriately. It's not going to fly in the wind. And also there was a question about, let me see, go back. Oh, and whether or not the sign would be lit. No, the sign will not be lit. I'm not sure whether or not you received my responses to these questions.
If it should be in everybody's
Okay, great.
packet.
I don't
That
want to be
was sent out, it was sent out last week.
Oh, great, already have it. Okay, I don't necessarily need to go over that.
But I wanted to also point out that there was a question about what the sign looks like. So it is actually, there is a sign exactly like we're asking for these two locations at the Department of Natural Resources, and it has been there for how long?
Oh, probably. Well, right after we went there, and I think it was like 2013. They hold up very well. We also have one at Packet Land in Marina, so it's the same company that we got the quote from, is the company that Carl Von Holm, my predecessor, had purchased through the Barco products, but it's a heavy duty composite material. It doesn't rot. And it's, the longevity is, I think it'll be there as long as we want it to. But just to kind of follow up on what Ruby said, I mean, a lot of these areas, a lot of the reasons that we have signs in these areas is because there is some sort of a problem, either being a trend of, you know, some sort of activity that's against town regulations, and we get a lot of complaints, and so we need to put up some signage because we can't be there 24/7. Or there may be some other public health issues, or, you know, a wildlife issue, or an issue with, you know, we want to educate people about shark sighting because that's a hot topic. That's on the news and we get a lot of questions. So we try to answer people's questions, but we want to try to avoid sign pollution. And unfortunately, in some of these areas, we've not done a good job at being able to avoid the sign pollution part. It doesn't look great. There's signs randomly posted on whatever available space, and people have noticed it and called us out on it, and we see their point. You know, particularly these two sites, Colonial Acres Beach and Bass Hole Beach. Bass Hole, it has very strong currents there that come and chase Garden Creek. There's been fatalities there in the past, so we need signs that kind of give people a heads up, dangerous currents, things like that. We post shellfish regulations there because that's a shellfish harvest area. So, but again, want to try to consolidate it in a nice aesthetically pleasing location. So that's basically the gist of the request.
Are there any questions? I didn't have anything else to present.
The signs in this picture will pretty much go with inside the kiosk, other than the no parking sign, I suppose.
Yes.
And like I think Ruby had said, if we need to resize some of these signs to fit, we will. We didn't want to put multiple kiosks or extra large kiosks. This is, you know, pretty big itself, but we realized that some of these signs may need to be resized, or maybe some of them, you know, we'll evaluate, do we need to put them back? You know, is this a trend that's no longer occurring?
And there may be space for other signs to go there, so it allows for growth as well.
Is this a location where one of these signs will go?
Yes, it is. That's
So,
Colonial Acres.
I just noticed that it has power there.
There is power there. We have cameras there and power. Potentially lighting, it could be something we could do.
Right, that's what I was getting at.
I don't think that would be a
Okay.
huge lift. Same with Bass Hole, actually. We have power there.
So I'm just, the two spots that you want to put Colonial Acres, one kiosk and another Bass River.
Bass Hole.
Bass, oh, okay. And it's totals $3,753 for one site times two, $7,500. But on the quote, it has a cost of $6,951.
I can understand the confusion on
Yeah,
that.
a little bit.
There was something that happened, and it was to do with the mounting brackets.
Oh, yes.
That happened after the presentation had already been sent through. My apologies.
No problem. No, sorry, just,
It had to do with the mounting.
We're probably going to actually be, we're gonna, the higher price was for additional brackets to bolt into cement and install the post into those brackets. Depending on where we decide to put these, we can probably get away with just longer posts and just burying them into the sand, and we could go without those more expensive brackets. So it might end up, yeah.
That was where we were with those two.
okay, so, and then did I read someplace that you guys would do the installation?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Couple questions. One is, have you thought about this, a QR code that sort of links
Ah.
to,
Always.
here you are, okay, you're thinking about it, but.
It is definitely, we actually worked with the Chamber of Commerce last year, and we had QR codes in multiple locations at our beaches.
Yeah.
And I think it was successful. I'm not sure whether or not we got a great hit from it, but it's definitely something I'm working on at the waste management facility. All of our signs will have QR codes, so yeah, I mean, whatever we can do, especially if we're remaking signs.
Well, that's just it. I mean, I think this group, an investment of tourism funds is to, while the opportunity presents itself, to try to make things more uniform, universal, things that are helpful. So the other thing, question. Notices about sharks and undertows seems to me would get lost in something like that. So do you have a way that just says, well, yeah, hello, by the time I get to the 5th sign, right? A way to do current postings. So let's say shark sighting, right? You're not gonna open up the thing and put a little piece of paper that says shark sighting. If you,
Right, I mean, we would want something that. If it's important like that, a public safety issue, we certainly would want to make sure that it stands out well enough.
so if this is 3-part, right?
Mhm.
Have you thought about like sort of just says for your safety? So people's eyes, as opposed to like, no launching boats and.
Right.
So dedicating one to safety.
I don't know, have you thought about that?
We hadn't kind of gotten to that point,
Oh,
but that's a really good point. I mean, I like the way you're thinking. It
Yes.
sounds very logical, outline it in red. This is really important, or green, or whatever color that's gonna make it.
And my other thing that I like to, I don't know if you can get a quote for it and maybe coordinate with Mary's team. But it really should say Yarmouth and where you are. Right,
Well,
on
there
the
is-
top of this thing?
The thing is, and I didn't get it in the shot, there is a sign right over here in this picture that tells.
I just meant to make these more uniform.
Oh,
I don't know if
Mhm.
to the group. I mean, and we're not making decisions today, but something I would very much, we really do a lousy job of advertising. So, there's nothing that says Yarmouth and then where you're at the, like even at like in gold or something, or some uniform,
Absolutely.
right? Here you
Sure.
are, every time but that's not just for you, that's,
Understood.
I'd like to make. Mary,
Make it a thing.
Mary and her group could weigh in about the most effective way
Yeah.
to do that. We'll do it hot. Well, way to get attention. Oh, and then what about solar lights, just solar lights on the top until you can connect it, I mean.
We've used solar panels on some of our patrol boats to keep the batteries charged. We've used solar panels
Okay,
in Run Pond and we've got a portable dock with aerators on it that we move to different locations where there's algae blooms. But the aerators are run off a solar panel, so I mean, certainly we have the technology.
Just the,
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
thank you, that's
Absolutely.
good thinking, Blinken.
I think Joe has a question for you.
Yep. Joe?
Yes, Colonial Acres and Grays Beach, are they recently migrated to attendees there, requiring a sticker? I know Grays,
Asshole is, yes, but not Colonial Acres Standish Way, no.
okay, so quick aerial, there's 12 spaces at Colonial Acres,
Parking spaces,
correct?
did you say you're looking at an aerial?
Yeah,
I don't know off the top of my head, but probably thereabouts.
okay, and then how many visitors can we park at Grays Beach?
Grays Beach has a substantial size lot.
I would say, that one is bigger, closer to 40.
Yeah.
At least.
I think it's a little more than that.
Yeah.
At least 60.
Yeah.
Okay, Jeff
Yeah.
Colby's in the back saying 60.
I'm just wondering, does the need for comprehensive signage exist at some of our more established and popular beaches, or is it because these beaches have just come online and are now being trafficked by visitors? I know that Grays Beach was relatively unknown for a long period of time. At least growing up, that was my experience. My point is that with the additional revenue of visitors now at Grays Beach, is there not going to be an opportunity to do the same thing that has been done at more of our established beaches, because we're now collecting money, and it goes into a beach maintenance fund? I'm just trying to understand exactly why there's a need, why there's been a proliferation, and then how it ends up at economic development.
Sure. Great question.
Great question.
I can tell you in terms of the different beaches, since I've been here 27 years, and I too have seen Grays Beach become more popular. And that was, before the attendees were there and everything. I mean, the boardwalk itself seems to be a huge draw. And I don't know if that's word of mouth, or there's been some, newspaper articles about it. But we have some of the same issues at some of the other beaches, Seagull Beach and Bass River Beach, but it's a larger area, and I think we have a lot of the same signs, but they're spread out a little more, or it doesn't seem to come across as much of the sign pollution issues as it does at these smaller areas where we're cramming all these signs into, like one little signpost. In terms of the revenue that's collected and a beach maintenance fund, that wouldn't be me to speak to that.
So I've frankly never been to Colonial Acres, but Maria brought it up earlier, and I think it's another opportunity to reiterate. Steve and I actually looked at Grays as a potential for a placemaking grant. It's got a canopy, it's got restrooms, it's on the north side. And I think there's probably an acknowledgement that it's relatively unutilized. I think I've been to a couple of kids' birthday parties there, but that's a decent location that could become a great draw if it had a little more infrastructure, and in incorporating a little more infrastructure into that location, you could clean up the sign pollution as it being a part of that vehicle, the grant I'm talking about. The problem was that there was no Wi-Fi even close to getting to Grays Beach, which is what we would also want to do as far as bringing the placemaking to a location like that. So we'd have that ability for a remote person, a beach goer, to sit under that canopy and check their email or log into Community Economic Development Committee meeting.
Yeah,
Would you guys be opposed to that Wi-Fi at that location? If we could do it, the town could do it?
I wouldn't be opposed. I don't see there's a reason why not. I think that the IT department might have something to say.
Oh, yeah,
I think that we
understand.
have cameras there already.
Right, so we do have power there.
Right.
But our other beaches don't have Wi-Fi that I'm aware of either.
Yeah, it's just something that we're exploring. the
Okay,
Potential.
okay.
Just want to get some feedback on.
And as far as the lighting of the signs, I think that probably creates a public safety issue, because don't our beaches close at sunset?
Yes.
I guess I was trying to understand more clearly your question about Smuggler's Beach. They are collecting stickers there, so trying to have an event or having a birthday party such as you referenced, it gets a little bit challenging when there is limited parking and stickers are being checked. That would be the only thing I would say. Unless it's off season, the stickers aren't being checked, and then it's all bets are off.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, no, I think that's kind of where I was headed, is there's a little bit of confusion about the utilization of that space, because you can go to the town and you can rent Grays Beach, or at least you could, in my recollection. I don't know that now that they're charging that you still can. I know that there's a median area before the gate or maybe they're allowing those birthday parties to manifest, but I just think it's a great location. I feel like it would be a great highlight for the town if that north side location was a little more accessible to visitors.
I think it was recreation
Yes,
that oversaw kind of renting the.
that's what I thought. I thought the
there's
permit
It's not a
process.
gazebo, but the covered picnic
I think
table.
it's
Yeah.
also a property use through Mary Alice found. Yeah, rather than.
Yeah.
Recreation.
And maybe because of the issues that are just discussed.
Possibly, I'm not sure.
I don't know for sure.
Thanks.
I don't,
Thank you.
good, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. So Jeff, we go to chamber next up.
Jeff.
All right,
I wanna lose
rolling chair, I'll be very careful. Hi, Jeff Colby, Public Works Director. I would like to talk, I've got three to talk with you about, but I would like to talk about Parkersburg Beach first, that works for the committee. I've got the
Sure.
chamber representatives here, and this really is a partnership between the town and the chamber on enhancements of that location. And I can certainly walk through kind of the execution and the plan, but if I could impose upon Mary or Tom Nicanello, who I think is on the call, to kind of talk a little bit about the vision for that. It is a important location and there are summer concerts there. There is
Starting next Monday.
starting
That was
next Monday
cool.
afterward. It's a little more commercial as far as what's going on in the community. And I think there's a vision to kind of enhance that, the look of the facility. The landscaping there is kind of overgrown. It has not been manicured or it's been allowed to naturalize. I should probably put it that way. And Karen, do you have those pictures of the beach by any chance that might help some?
Did you submit them or?
I think Mary might have.
Oh,
sent
okay,
something to you.
since
If you
3:30.
want, I can
Let me,
certainly-
no, hold on. Let me
certainly-
hope I don't have anything crazy in my email.
I certainly could talk through that. It's a major beach for the town. It's not our biggest, but probably the third, if you will.
Yep.
And it is one that, again, has quite a bit, there's the pictures right there.
Yeah, hold on.
As you can see, there's quite a bit of Rugosa Rose that has really been, taking over the site. It does help.
Jeff, can you just hold up? Let me share the
Sure.
screen so Joe and our viewers at home can see. Joe, can you see the photo? I think you're muted, Joe. Just give me a thumbs up if you can see it.
I can see it.
Great. Sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
But yeah, I think these pictures are great. It kind of shows, what I called before kind of naturalized environment, but it was, back when the facility was built, the Rugosa Rose and some of the other vegetation was less plentiful there. It was more kind of selectively placed. You can see those posts there. It's just been, there's a lot of movement of sand. In fact, without our kind of regular maintenance there, the sand kind of takes over on the deck, as you can see on that right picture there. So there's an interest to kind of enhance that. Do you want to elaborate on kind of what the vision was, Mary? For that?
Yeah, and if Karen, if you could scroll down a little bit, so where the concerts are, they're actually in front of that deck where you're seeing, and that sand dune on the bottom left-hand side is like actually starting to encroach into like I'll say the viewing and sitting area where we have the concerts. And typically, if it's nice weather, we'll have anywhere between 300 to 500 people every Monday night that attend those concerts. So it's a very well attended event, but also, on a regular basis, you'll see on the walkways that the vegetation, a lot of the time is growing over into the sidewalks. So when people are trying to get to the concession booths or to the restrooms, those are all very prickly. So we think about the families and kids that are trying to go in between those to get to the concession booth or the restrooms. So it's more of we're trying to make the site more aesthetically pleasing to the public when they come. And if I can, on the upper pictures as well, when I was over there today, some of those posts are actually rotted out of the ground and kind of like leaning into the vegetation right now as well. So just
you know, to Jeff's point, it's it's an evaluation of what's existing there and what's the potential of what pretty.
Okay, great. No, that's perfect. So what we put together for a budget for the project, and I know there were some questions about this, I want to talk a little bit on this. The first element is a survey and base plan development. What the survey would do, it would locate the resource areas. You know, where's the edge of the beach, the top of the revetment area, you know, what are the elevations? You know, this area is land subject to coastal storm floodings. We need to know kind of where the critical elevations are, locate the building, you know, the parking features. So the base plan will kind of show existing conditions, if you will. And that's anticipated to be approximately $10,000. That is a pretty healthy budget, but the costs for engineering and surveying services these days are quite a bit more than I was used to paying just a few years ago. Karen and I were working at the Taylor Bray Farm, and we needed a survey just to finish out phase 1 of the Taylor Bray Farm project. Just locating the building, that's it, relative to property lines. None of what I just explained to you about all the other features, $8,200. So it is just very expensive to engage these professionals these days. So that's the surveying and base plan development. Then there's the landscape architect services. That would be the planting specifications, a licensed landscape architect, of course, drafting those components onto the base plan as far as the selection of plants and where they go, grading incorporations if we need to, you know, alter some of that movement of sand or better define that. There is the potential for some of those walkway improvements as well, depending on, you know, what that what's identified and what we're able to do. A maintenance plan for those components, particularly the vegetation and what that will look like. Certainly, our first preference is low maintenance or no maintenance, but you know there are maintenance for almost everything these days, one way or another. And then, of course, preliminary and final review meetings with the town and the chamber for the landscape architect services, and that's estimated at being $7,500. Then the third component is the conservation filing. There is a notice of intent that's necessary here. The chamber reps, DPW and parks, as well as Conservation Brittany met out at the site to kind of talk about what the scope of this would look like and what would be anticipated. And there's definitely a need for a notice of intent based upon the type of work that's being proposed. There's a state filing fee. There would not be a local filing fee because it's the town as the applicant. But there is a stormwater management filing component to that, again, with any notice of intent. And then it'd be meeting attendance for both the public meeting as well as any review with chamber and staff. And that's anticipated to be $7,500. That typical filing would be, done if the landscape architect is not comfortable with identifying the resource areas. There would be another professional, a wetland scientist or someone that would need to identify those as well. So that's all rolled into that conservation filing quote. So that's $25,000 for the execution of that. That would just be for getting the baseline and developing a plan. As far as doing the work, that would have to be future considered, whether it's a capital request from the town or some other funding source for that. But this at least get the process started. It's not something that would be done. Well, the planning can be done this year, but the execution of any of the work anticipated wouldn't be until next year, 2023. So happy to answer any questions you might have about that.
So what about the encroachment on the walkways now? Seems to me that's more also a safety issue. You can't touch those?
There's some maintenance that's allowed, and our parks division does do some of that. So certainly when it starts to overgrow the sidewalks, we can trim that. But there's a thought that maybe it shouldn't be Rosa Rose there, maybe it should be some other kind of vegetation. And if we were to completely remove that, we can't do that without approval from conservation.
Okay, I guess in the context of that question was what can we do now to enhance the site for the current, and Mary's raising her hand, so you can.
I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
so that was the problem we had last season. I think now that we've brought it to the attention of the Parks Department and we've walked through there, I think now if we start to have that issue going through the summer, I'll be able to call Kevin and they would probably address it quickly for us. So right now it looks
So
good.
we've lost this, not lost this season, but we're not talking about any design work or any actually work that would be done for this season.
Right, no implementation other than just basic maintenance.
Okay, So with that being said, can you back us into a timeline? How, what's a comfortable timeline for us to, is, assuming we're not deciding we give you money or some money, right? When would you need it in order to have this ready to go in May or June of next year?
Right, so our plan would be to have all the work that I've just talked about in this scope done in the fall and winter of this year. But there's a big disclaimer there, and that's the availability of consultant services. I've had some discussions recently with architects and engineers. It seemed to be a very common response. We're not taking on new work. So the ability to find somebody that would commit to doing this within that time frame, that seems a reasonable time frame to me. But given how busy everyone is, that's going to be the big wild card. Certainly, if we could get it done, the planning and design this fall and into the winter, we could be implementing in the spring. That would be ideal. I'm just not sure if the availability of consultants will allow for that. But if you're willing to fund it, I'm willing to push as hard as we can to get it done on that time frame. But that is a big what if. I've talked to some builders recently, and I don't know if anybody's looked at that for enhancements on their personal property, but a builder that we use pretty regularly, it's telling people that he's like 9 months out with architect services, things he's beyond his control before he can start to apply for a building permit. So I think we're in that category of professionals that are just very busy these days.
So just, can I jump in? Just as a follow-up to Maria's question, there is work that TPW can do now to address some of the issues that Maria's brought forward, like
Yes,
the overgrown,
basic
cutting back some of those and moving the sand off the sidewalks.
Yes, right. Basic maintenance like
Basic
that.
maintenance
Right.
can be done
Yes,
to accommodate this year's season concert series.
yes.
Yeah.
What is the life of the survey? In other words, if it takes you 18 months before you can start to act on any of the surveys or landscape plan, I mean, is there possibility it needs to be redone or updated, revised?
Yeah, at some point, I'm sure it would. I mean, it's just a dynamic environment with regards to the dunes out there, so you'd want to capture the current existing conditions. But it should be good for, I would say, multiple years once you get the base plan survey stuff. So if it did take us quite a bit longer to get this done, it would be good throughout this element of the project. A few years from now, that conditions might change enough that we need to revisit it, but certainly what we've laid out here would be sufficient for executing whatever is intended in the relatively couple of years time frame.
So Jeff, we have a lot of beaches, right? Is this a priority? Let me ask the question that way. Is this a priority against all the other beaches that you have?
Well, I would say that we'd like to see improvements at every beach,
Right.
in every park, if you will. We just had a grand opening this past week over at Sandy Pond, I think was well received, and that was a nice enhancement there. I would say that our approach recently, or more than that, for the long time, Yarmouth has been more kind of reactive and just doing things here and there to try to address things. I don't want to say it's more haphazard, but not on a comprehensive basis. So, this certainly would help address this area, but we would certainly want to look at others in the future. We just haven't done a lot of work recently at any of our beaches, or
Right.
frankly, any of our parks, other than the one we just opened, and maybe pickleball over at Black's Pond. Very, very selective sites, if you will. But yes, it'd be nice to do something everywhere.
I'd like to add or ask you to consider for an agenda item, establishing a program just to enhance and maintain our beaches as a comprehensive,
My guess
what we
is,
could do to
my
supplement
guess is you probably
what Jeff
have
does.
a plan, but it needs to be updated. A comprehensive plan for beaches. and parks.
Well, I would say that if we do, it's very old.
Yeah.
We do have a master plan for Sandy Pond, of which, that feature that was open this weekend was part of. There is an older master plan for Black's Pond and some of our other parks, if you will, but I think our beaches are sorely lacking in any kind of cohesive plan.
Yeah, and it tied in obviously with economic development, so. And I also if we consider it, they are like, we talked about the lack of venues, right? For events, and obviously beaches, parking lots are to consider that. So if we could discuss that in a future event and then get input from you know, everybody who else has got a piece of the beaches in Yarmouth.
Pretty much everyone.
Yeah.
Where else would you go to funding for funding? If you could get it from us?
Well, certainly, the typical capital request with the town is a possibility. That cycle is going to begin soon, maybe in September timeframe. We need to put in our capital requests. The challenge we have with that process is there are more requests than the town has funding, so it becomes a priority type of thing. It becomes more, you know, what's more critical, what's falling apart, what, needs to be upgraded because it's a safety issue, things like that.
Fire trucks, equipment, trucks. Yeah.
Exactly, things of that
Yeah.
nature.
Have you explored, or Parks comes under your,
It does.
has land and water conservation money been explored? I'm sure it has. There's an update.
We have, and there was the previous discussion of mentioned, and I think Joe might have mentioned it. There is a small fund that's growing over time for beach maintenance. It's a portion, it's like a $5 portion of the daily fees that go into beaches, goes into a fund for maintenance. Last time I checked, it was probably in the $20,000 range. So we'd
Right.
like to see that grow over time.
Yeah.
And maybe could be used for some of the improvements or, but it's a relatively small amount given how many beaches the town has. So there is a source of funds there for some things.
Mhm.
Again, the things that are going to come up higher on the list for using those funds are the things that are immediately breaking. I need immediate dollars. One of the things that comes to mind, we just did it. It happened to be at Parker's River Beach. In order to open that concession up, which there is a vendor for that concession this year. Fortunately, that's great. It's the first time in a few years. We had to put in a new fume hood in that, and so those are the types of improvements that maybe more safety related or functional related come out of funds that
Yeah.
are typically collected from beaches.
So
Joe?
Just a quick question. I'm not sure who can answer this best, but whoever can, I would appreciate knowing. How many concerts, how long has this been going on? I guess it's trending that it's becoming more popular.
So it's been, the chamber has been sponsoring the summer concert series for over 30 years. They started at Mattakey School. Sorry, what was your next question?
How many?
How many, so it's every Monday night in July and August, so it's 9 Monday nights in a row.
So the venue hasn't always been Parker's River Beach.
It has not, since I've been here in 2015, it has been at Parker's River Beach, so I'm not sure when they made the transition over there. From what I understand, there used to be a band, an outdoor band.
yeah,
Bandstand.
Maddie,
Shell.
I'm not sure what's the history.
There was the show
about
at Mattakey.
2010, 2011, because I
Okay,
I
so,
sponsored them, yeah,
okay, so,
in part.
so at least 8 or 10 years they've been at Parker's River Beach.
Okay, thanks.
So one more question. I'm sort of brainstorming on my own about developing or this sort of a beach fund or something that maybe this organization might consider. So is there an inventory of for all the beaches, signs needed at 3 beaches, this needed at 2 beaches? Because I hear you finding contractors, but I mean, when you make it exciting, right? If they can do 5, you might get somebody to come up and give us a better price too, to do that comprehensive sort of inventory.
Yeah, I think the short answer for what you're asking is no. I don't think there's anything for our beaches like that.
Well, maybe that's something we could think about, funding an intern or something to just go around and help
Right.
Jeff document in order for us to supplement an economic development and or marketing plan that, that says we are invested completely in our beaches and we want tourists to come and enjoy their experience everywhere. At every beach is going to be the same experience. So that's what I'm sort of chugging in my head here.
Okay. Good. Thank you for that. Any other questions for Jeff on that particular one? Great.
All right, the next request is, and the next 2 both are at Taylor Bray Farm. The first one is the barn. There is a current project, I alluded to it a moment ago when I was talking about surveying work. But the first phase of the barn rehabilitation, which is essentially the structural phase, the foundation is wrapping up. Town meeting just appropriated $400,000 in CPC funds to do interior and exterior improvements there. And that has been advertised and is, we'll be opening bids on that towards the end of July. So that's underway. But one element of that project that's not anticipated to be able to be completed with the available funds is the roof. We had a roof survey done, and there's about 5 to 8 years left on that roof. I think that, I don't know if it was included in the packet of information or not, but we had Consult Roofing go, no, that's the professional cost estimate.
I think it was in the original.
Yeah, we had Consult go and look at it.
I saw that.
It's all over town.
Yep.
And on this particular one at the barn, they said, oh, you've got 5 to 8 years, and I believe that's very conservative. It's probably 10 if I were to guess, because they're, looking to do roofing, right? So that's just how it works. So it's really not a critical component of the barn project to do the roof. It's asphalt shingles currently. But having recent interactions with Old Kings Highway and our historic folks, there's a strong desire, maybe that's understated, to have red cedar shingle historically appropriate roofs for historic structures like at Celebrate Farm.
Yeah, okay.
So this request for the barn, which would be an enhancement to a project that's currently ongoing, would be a wooden red cedar shingle roof for the barn at approximately $140,000. And the document that you just showed is the professional cost estimate associated with the project. Once we got that, we realized we can do interior and exterior enhancements on the barn, but not the roof. It's just not going to happen within the available budget. But it would be very fitting, a cherry on the top, if you will. So, maybe that's not the best.
No,
analogy,
it's good, but I think it's
to be able to
appropriate
do a
enough.
historically appropriate roof on this project to finish it off. So that's essentially what the request is. Like I said, the funding we have is not going to be sufficient for the roof, but the request that we have before you would be to do a historically appropriate roof on the barn project to complete it. Karen, is
If
there anything
anyone's,
else you want to add to
no,
that?
just if anybody's not familiar with what the roof type is that Jeff's talking about, and you go down to the farmhouse, which is set back from the barn, has the cedar shingles, so you can see the difference. in
Right,
it.
and it's adjacent to this.
Yeah.
It'll be a nice feature.
Okay,
Happy to
any other questions
answer any
for
questions.
Jeff on the roof,
Pretty
the barn?
straightforward.
the cherry rooftop?
It wouldn't necessarily be cherry, but yeah. But that's I can come up with.
Cedar.
Red cedar,
Red cedar.
cherries are red.
And the last request that I have is the roof of the cottage, which DPW facilities was fully ready to move forward with replacing that with asphalt shingles. But again, this is a discussion we've recently had with Historic and Old Kings Highway, that they would have a strong preference for the cedar shingles on that structure as well. And on the cottage, we were going to do that in-house, and we're fully prepared to do that in-house for the asphalt shingles. The cedar shingles are not within our budget. That's a $40,000 component, and that's from the Consult inspection. 36,000 plus a small contingency gets us to 40. So that's not really within the scope of our 2-member facilities crew to do a historically appropriate, much more detailed type of installation for a cedar shingle roof. So that would be an enhancement if we could replace that with cedar shingles for that structure as well. So that's really a simple, straightforward request. I did see in one of the questions that the committee had as to whether we considered using the sheriff's office. And to be honest with you, we hadn't, but I looked into it after that came up, and they do roofs, believe it or not. So I certainly, if this committee felt that it was something worth funding, that is the place we would make the request is for the sheriff's office. I can't tell you how what their current workload looks like, whether it would happen, right away, or whether it's something we'd have to wait for. I do know, and having researched that there are other components, the costs associated with that. Certainly, we have to pay for all of the materials, and it's more than just the red cedar shingle roof, there's a breather membrane that goes down below it to do it properly. Which we believe is absent from what the current shingles are out there, which is one of the problems. So it would be done properly with stainless steel nails. All those materials would be the cost to the project. The sheriff's department, of course, wouldn't provide that. There may also be a cost associated with overtime or a detail for a supervisor, as well as lunches are expected for the duration of the project, which is expected for a couple of weeks to get.
The supervisor has been a licensed contractor.
Right.
And the young, typically men, who are put on this detail are the lowest risk, and generally they've been enrolled in an additional program in order, they qualify, right? So that in terms of safety, good community, et cetera. So I am a former sheriff's office employee, and I think they do outstanding work, or they typically have. So to the extent that we would be helping the young people in our community too, I mean, I know it's, I think it's just a wonderful opportunity, Jeff, if it works out. And I do understand they get booked very quickly.
Yeah, sure. We have used them for painting. We've used them for litter pickup. We've used them for, I think, even pulling weeds, although I don't think they were excited about that. It wasn't one of their core functions, if you will, what they like to do, but roofs were right on the list. So I do believe it would be a good match, especially on the cottage, which is a very low roof. Easy for them to access. It's not a lot of tall ladders, I think, like a small roof, relatively speaking. So it's certainly something worth giving a try to if funded.
Questions?
I guess the only other thing would be, if you could get them lined up, how would do they come up with the cost estimates of the materials you need, or they expect you?
I think they expect us to provide them,
Okay,
which we can. We have accounts with like Mid-Cape and others, and we can provide the materials. That's not a problem.
okay, just so. If and when it comes time to vote on the funding, that if it's an option.
Yeah.
We know what.
Right.
If you don't get this funding, you're gonna put asphalt shingles on there?
Well, no, on this on the barn, we can defer and not do the
Right.
work, right? On this particular roof, we're gonna need to do something. And at this point, they're requiring the cedar shingles, so we're going to have to, if we don't get the funding from your committee, look somewhere else. And it's the capital program the town has is a source, as I mentioned before, and some of the other questions you've had. I'm not sure if it necessarily lines up from a timing standpoint. The requests go in September, they don't get funded until town meeting, and they're not available July 1st. So because of that cycle, that's a concern. We want to do the roof sooner. So we're gonna have to keep brainstorming if this is not there.
And there's no one living in there now?
No.
There's no plans to have somebody living there?
Not immediately.
Is there any plan, are there plans for it?
There's the plans, we could look into, there's a lot of folks that would like me to keep looking into a caretaker situation. We had a caretaker there for years and years and years. But right now it's kind of the stopgap while the barn's under construction.
Jeff, does the work for the roof include the rakes and the rotten trim that's identified in here as well? It
Yes.
does include
It
that?
does.
Okay.
At least, the rakes and the fascia trim.
Right.
There is some corner boards that need to be replaced, and that's something our facilities group can do. It's not necessarily something we would have the inmates do, but the rakes and fascia would be kind of integral to doing the roof. You want to make sure that all lines up, so we have it done at the same time.
So this last page kind of confused me. It had listed all these items in the bottom right and came up with a cost of 86,000. It's, for example, that cedar shingle roofing, premium roofing GAF, preferred roofing GAF, white cedar sidewall replacement, 5-inch K-style aluminum gutters, trim replacement fascia, and the rake, all for 86,000. So I'm wondering what that is all about and why.
Right, that's Kazalt, and they did a roof inspection, and this particular structure went a little further than that because it needs a lot of things. And they put assigned estimates associated with all the work that's needed so that we could decide how we wanted to tackle that. So that includes all the work that's necessary out there. It doesn't mean that we're gonna be using them or even going after that right away. Some of the work could be delayed. In fact, the case with the gutters, we were actually able to remove the gutters and not have to pay for new gutters, and the insurance company was okay with that. So we're able to address some of those differently, but that was a cost estimate they put together. We didn't request it. They just said, hey, if you want to sign tomorrow, we'll do all this work for you. They're essentially looking for work.
Okay, all
I
right,
do believe their assessment was accurate.
okay. So the 40,000 is basically for the rakes, the siding.
Right, it's essentially just the roof and the associated component.
And when does the sheriff's department need a heads up from you guys? If they
Well, we haven't made a request with them. I just did enough research to look at the possibilities. And the next step would be for me to make an official request. You can do that online. And it was very simple. I just didn't go ahead and do that because we don't get the funding. We're not able to pull the trigger on having them do the work. So
Okay, so the next question then is they need to know the funding's in place before they'll give you a time.
absolutely,
Okay,
they need to know the materials are available or on site before they'll come back.
okay. All right,
That's
fair
right
enough.
in there on the website.
Fine, fair enough.
So the time is of the essence for the cottage.
Yes.
So
I mean,
when,
as
when,
far as-
so when are we, did you think we would meet next to talk about funding?
I thought we talked about it. But when you say time is of the essence, I mean, it doesn't have to be done
I mean,
tomorrow, but
No,
can't
no.
wait another 2 years. What you're
Right.
saying.
Yes.
But
somewhere
wait,
between that,
but-
right, yes. Between tomorrow and 2 years.
Yeah,
You can't take away that.
Maybe between tomorrow and 1 year. It's
No.
shorter.
Oh, one more question. So, you would do this in the off season, right? After, like, there
I
won't be
think-
much.
I think we could make it to Labor Day, and I also don't think that the county can commit till probably after that. Oh, that's a guess on my part, but it would be after Labor.
Okay, so I was kind of getting to the disruption to the ongoing activities there.
Right.
I don't know how long
We
it
try to
takes
avoid
to
the
do
summer when we
3-4
can,
days. I don't know.
and a repair has been made on the roof that I feel can get us through Labor Day.
My last question, so this is considered a park or a special project? I mean, where does it fit into the domain of plans, master plans, those type of things for projects?
Well, for the cottage specifically,
yeah.
I would say it wasn't necessarily on a radar screen until the insurance company said they were gonna cancel us if we didn't do something. So that's another component I didn't mention before, but something
Yeah.
Karen and I deal with right.
I'd say the 3 historic structures, the Baxter Gristmill, the Judah Baker Windmill and Taylor Bay Farm
Okay,
are
there
a
you go.
category in and of themselves.
Okay,
Yes.
all right,
But that said, it's always a team effort with Jeff and I. There's no one spot to go.
Okay.
And even Bill for the Baxter Gristmill.
Right.
okay. Thank you.
Right.
Questions?
Great.
Wait,
Thank you very much.
all right,
Slowly roll back.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
thank you very
See you
much.
soon.
I know we got next on the agenda is a special event program, but I know folks in Canberra here, I don't want to. Because Mary's got to go to the town meeting too, town hall, for the Board of Selectmen. So is that okay if we jump over? Mary and Jane, how are you guys? Great, thank you.
You're good, great. Would you mind if we just did introductions, so because I don't think Jen.
There's some new faces that I don't know.
Start here. Maria?
Oh, no. Hi.
Danielle Wickham.
Hi.
Peter Slovak.
Courtney Butler.
Joe Gibbs. You know me.
Yeah, and I know Karen.
You know.
And
And you know Joe?
Yes.
We other Miss Joe. You gone?
I'm here.
All right, Joe.
There he is.
There he is.
But I have the, do you want me to pull up the slides, Jen?
Fine.
And these are all in your packet, I think.
Yes.
Why did it?
I think I'm gonna put-
Wacky.
Yeah.
This is wacky. Hold on, let's try again. All right.
Okay.
So the first slide shows what we're doing in the current marketing contract. So we've got different buckets for online campaigns, traditional campaigns, events, and visitor services. So under the online bucket, I just listed out all the different marketing campaigns that we're doing, and a lot of them are still ongoing through the end of August. So we've done social mirror ads, which are currently going on, giveaway packages, weather trigger ads, geofencing, our website, the monthly maintenance of our website, SEO, which we did a 4-month plan for that, so that's ended. And then we've been doing blogging every other month. For events, we have got the Christmas stroll, which happens in December, the winter carnival. I love that event. That happens in February. We did cleanup day in April, and then we tried to do a wing fling competition between the restaurants, but unfortunately, I could not get enough restaurants to sign up. So we had to cancel that, so I was pretty bummed about that. And then for our traditional bucket, that is our Mid-Cape magazine, photography and videography, print. We've done stuff in the summer guide, the Mid-Cape magazine, we do ads in there. We also do ads in the Cape Cod travel guide. We also reprint our conservation trail brochures and then also our old Cape Cod discovery trail brochures. We do a lot of different radio campaigns, promotional materials. We buy things throughout the year. So we actually just bought these cute little beach buckets with shovels that we've been giving out to the kids when they go into Flax Pond and to the recreation department, and then we give them out at our visitor centers as well. And then for visitor services, we've got public enhancements, our J1 orientation dinner, which is actually happening tomorrow. And we have 84 people registered for that, so we're super excited.
At the J1 dinner, could you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Could you tell them what side of the road they're supposed to walk on and ride their bikes on?
So yes, we will have people
Please.
from the police department and the fire department, and there also will be an ambulance there, so.
That doesn't answer my question, because I'm not sure.
It's hard because in their countries, they're taught different, so we try.
I know, it's frightening to come upon somebody walking in the middle of the night. But, you know, I know,
It's hard.
a lot of, okay, I digress.
And then we also have our garden gateway signs, and we actually just, we usually put up fall decorations, winter decorations, and then this year we purchased summer decorations that are currently up on all the garden gateway signs, so. Nice. So that's just a summary of what we're doing in this current marketing contract. And then on the next slide, I just did some images with campaign examples. So it just shows those little beach buckets I was talking about, the promotional items, a geofencing ad that we're doing with CCD Media. I have a couple of pictures from events that we did throughout the year. The different giveaways we've done with social mirror ads. There's a picture of the garden gateway signs with the summer decorations by the visitor services. And then visitor center improvements that we've done at the Route 28 Visitor Center.
And we would encourage you guys, I know Maria and Steve and obviously Karen have been in our visitor center, but so many times our local residents come in the visitor center and they're just amazed with how beautiful our visitor center is and how well maintained. And that particular visitor center on Route 28 gets 22,000 people a year. And we have door counters and we track that door count every single day so that we watch it year after year to see what the traction is. When they have 130.
We've been averaging about 130 a day.
140 a day, so that's quite a few people in 7 hours. So, but please, we welcome you to come see what your investment is paying for.
Maybe we could have a meeting.
Please do.
Well,
Yeah.
good idea.
That's a
Yeah.
great idea. We have all the capabilities to.
You have to keep it, yeah, you can zoom in now, too. Yeah. Good idea.
How was the winter carnival this year for attendance, or did you track it?
So yeah, we actually, I think pretty much doubled what we did our first year. So we estimated we had about 4,500 people there, and we let kids in 6 and under free. So it's hard to track how many kids come through. But I mean, I think it was a great success. I mean, it gives something for people to do in the off season. And we're able to offer so many different activities. And this year, we did it for 3 days. So we did Saturday, Sunday, and Monday of President's Day weekend. And we really weren't sure how Monday was going to go, but we were really pleasantly surprised at how many people came. So I think for next year, our plan is to keep it for those 3 days. And then Saturday, we did 12 to 6, and we find that once it starts to get, the sun goes down, people start leaving. So I think we're just gonna keep it to like 11 to 4 all 3 days.
Did
So,
you have the skating?
yes,
Too?
yeah,
I don't know if
Yeah.
you knew about that.
yeah.
4,500 over 3 days.
Yeah. I think our first year, we estimated we had maybe like 1,500, 2,000 people or so.
Yeah, and our hope would be is to try to encourage the libraries to do something. Some of the local restaurants, if they had live music at night, we promoted that, because what we found out the first year, when we did the survey that was required through the CEDC. Was how many people actually came from out of town and they were vacationing here just for the school vacation week. So that was something really interesting that we didn't consider, how many people were staying in our hotels from across New England and beyond. We met people from Pennsylvania and Virginia
Connecticut, yeah.
that were here, so that was a great learning curve for us as well. So being able to build on that event that we know has success and is gradually increasing in attendance, we think is a great investment for the town. And if I can, just to address the wing fling, the reason that the restaurants, we had probably 8 to 10 that were committed to the event, but it was the price of chicken and it was short-staffed. That they just couldn't make the commitment to the additional expense. So it was really unfortunate because it would have been a great promotion for the restaurants in Yarmouth.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
unfortunately, it was something that we never anticipated.
Great price of
Who would
chicken.
think that the price of chicken would have doubled?
Yeah.
Right, and
Yeah, avian flu or something this summer, right? That
Right.
caused a lot of that. but
Yeah, and we've
So-
tried to expand it to Dennis and Hyannis restaurants, because we figured if it's gonna be at the cultural center, it's bringing people to Yarmouth, but like even with that, we couldn't get enough restaurants to sign up. So that was a little
so
disappointing.
it certainly wasn't by, because of effort from our staff, and then poor Jen. Poor Jen would come in every day, do we get another one signed up, so it was disappointing for us as well. So,
And the interest was definitely there from people wanting to get tickets for it,
oh, yeah,
so.
we would have sold out in a heartbeat, just,
Great idea.
Yeah,
so that's the current year.
And then I also threw some data together on the next slide, just to show our website visitors. So that's slightly increased. Our Facebook followers keeps growing, which is great. Our social mirror ads. So this was something new that we did this year with Cape Cod Broadcasting Media. And we did one for the fall, which was a enter to win a fall getaway. And we got a 0.35% click-through rate, which is 5.01 times the national average. So that's good. And we're currently doing a spring campaign with them that should be wrapping up soon. So I'll have data from that. And then we did 4 months of SEO. And since we in the previous contract, we also did we did SEO as well, and we find that that's a really good thing to have. And I would like to continue that for the next contract, because we have seen a 68% increase in traffic compared to 2022. And then geofencing, which has been one of my favorite marketing campaigns to do. So essentially this year we decided we're targeting, not targeting, sorry. So the 2 campaigns that we're doing are around the Sand Sculpture Trail and our family friendly activities. And instead of targeting the different visitor centers along the Cape, we decided to switch it up and target different attractions across the Cape that are not in Yarmouth. And just for the month of May only, we've had a 1.31% click-through rate, and that is like unheard of. So I was very happy when I got that report this week. Both Devin and I that I work with was like, oh my God, like this is insane.
I was so excited, I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah, because it's 18 times the national average for the click-through rate. So I mean, clearly, I'm hoping that it goes for another 2 months. So I hope that we continue to see that. And then if that's why it's so successful, then we'll just keep doing that instead of doing different visitor centers like we did in the past.
So as an example, I think the top destination on it was Arts Dunes Tours. And it was over 6,000 views, right? And then I forgot what the click-through was, but it was amazing to see how many thousand people just viewed that
Yeah.
It was so impressive from
That's great.
all over the Cape.
To really leverage a very popular
Instead of going to
attraction
the visitors
for
center,
your-
just go to the
for our game.
destinations.
Yeah,
where
that's
people
great.
go.
Chatham Bars Inn was another one,
Yeah,
Dolphin
that's
Fleet
good.
Whale Watch, the Hyannis Youth and Community Center was another one.
Very good.
So, yeah, I'm excited about it.
But the great thing was, is they were connected to families. Which is our goal, is to make sure that Yarmouth is a family-friendly destination. So, we were really happy with those results.
And then just to highlight a few of the events, I know we just talked about Winter Carnival that we had 4,500 in attendance. For the Christmas stroll, we got 7 more businesses this year. I know COVID had a huge impact on our stroll a few years ago, and then businesses were sort of reluctant to sign up, but this year we got 7 more, so we had some new ones too, so that was exciting that we're getting that number back up. And then cleanup day, insane too, that we had 152 people pre-register. In years past, we maybe have had a little over 100, but I mean, it was awesome that we had that many people show up, and I know Brittany and Catherine were, very excited about all the people that came out and cleaned, so. Just happy with that as well. And then, yeah, of course.
For the Facebook followers, is that just like town of Yarmouth? Like what?
No, so Yarmouth Cape Cod is like what we sort of use it's for our website, it's for Facebook and Instagram as well. So that's sort of like more of like our tourist driven account.
Mhm.
So that's the Facebook account that we have.
I wasn't sure if you were talking about if it was just the events or if it was for the whole time.
Yeah, it's for everything. So. And then the last slide shows the draft for the next contract. So for the online bucket, I wanted to keep giveaway packages in there, the geofencing, the website, the monthly maintenance, SEO again, because I feel that's very important. The social mirror ads, I thought that was a good new campaign that we did this year. And then also I was looking into something called over the top advertising. So it's essentially streaming a TV commercial over, a Netflix or a streaming service, and you actually can get data from it. And so it would be like a 3-month campaign. We have a great marketing video that promotes Yarmouth that we've used a little bit here and there, but I thought that might be something different that we could try, because I know the most important thing for us is that we are able to track it and get data back. So I started some conversations with CCB Media about it. So I thought maybe if we can fit that in there, maybe we could try it and see how it goes. For the traditional bucket, the photo and video, the radio, Mary and I have been wanting to do a Yarmouth jingle. We tried to put it into the last contract, but we had to make budget cuts, so we thought that could be something that we could explore.
Coming.
I know.
And we do have a company that we could work with, and had given me a quote previously for it. Our promotional materials, because those are always fun to pass out at events in our visitor centers, and then we'll keep the print in there as well. I did take out blogging out of the online section. I feel like we don't get a lot of page views from it. It really depends on the topic. And so, I would actually like to take that out for the next contract. And then for our events, so Scarecrows is a Mary idea that she would like to do to get the businesses involved. And essentially it would be that they would purchase, we would purchase Scarecrow kits, right? And then they would then buy them from us, right? And then she used to do it out in Western Mass, but each business would buy them and then they decorate them in their own way. And then they put them out on display, and then people can like vote on their favorites, right? Is that,
Yeah. It's like a contest.
Yeah.
And families could do it, but it's really, so imagine the sand sculpture trail, but there's scarecrows.
Scarecrows, I was gonna say.
And it's fairly inexpensive in there. We did it in Western Mass one year and I can remember 2 of us installed 100 scarecrows. But it was just so impressive, the amount of people that came out to see them. So it's just another positive. thing to try to see.
As it says Yarmouth.
And
Somewhere.
you had so much success
Anywhere.
with that Halloween thing during COVID.
Yes,
That was,
I know.
so Halloween's so popular. I think it's a
Mhm.
great idea.
That's cool.
Oh, right?
Yeah.
Yikes.
Trucks. Fire stations right down
I
the
hear
street.
that's-
No more fires, please.
Back to their station?
You're.
This is a house front, garage front, I can't be through it.
Aye.
And then also keeping the Christmas stroll in there and winter carnival, and then I would like to propose to do a art and wine festival, next year. I was thinking August timeframe, do it on a Saturday and Sunday, maybe at Simpkins Field. But I thought it would be great, maybe if we could work with the cultural center and, bring people here in August when, there's not any other major events going on. I would love to have some live music, stuff for the kids, and just make it like a family friendly 2-day event. So that was
Where are you proposing?
maybe Simpkins Field is what we were thinking,
Okay.
just because I know the drive-in site's gonna be out of,
Mhm.
commission and stuff.
Hopefully it's under construction.
Yeah, exactly. And I think to managing it wise, same thing with Winter Carnival, start off and try to do something that you can
Small.
handle and then grow it
Good
from
idea.
there.
Good idea.
But I thought that could be something different that we could do. And then for visitor services, we're gonna be, taking back over the lovely banners that are around town.
Thank you.
Yes, you are.
I got another idea too. Talk to you about it.
And then the gateway signs, which we've been doing, the visitor center improvements. We thought this might be our last year of doing the J1 orientation dinner, but we thought it might be great if we could do some budgeting for stuff to put in their backpacks, whether it could be bike lights or something along those lines.
That's a good idea. No good idea.
Yeah, the cost of the J1 dinner, we budgeted $500, and the dinner tomorrow night is costing us $2,200
Mm.
because of the cost of food. And what we also found out is that a lot of the other towns now are replicating pretty much what we've done.
Yeah.
And so the kids are getting free meals in multiple places. So we thought it would be a better investment in bike safety.
Yeah, good idea.
Things that they
Good
really
idea.
need. Maybe somehow coming up with a packet, because their biggest thing is learning, like, where do I go to the doctor? How do I get a bank account started? Where do I find the second and third job? Like, we have so many kids coming in this year. Where do I find my second and third job? So we've never seen anything like it, which is so odd. But I think we have so many J1 and H2Bs here this season.
Good.
So I think that's the difference, but making it more where it's valuable information for them. So we're just thinking about changing that up because feeding them one night doesn't seem to be making an impact as much as providing them other services. So.
And then we also have our public enhancements and then training. So that is pretty much it for our proposal. Does anyone have questions?
Your new event, why pick August and not September or October or something? Not October, October is busier.
I think I was just trying to think of a month where there wasn't really too much going on, and I thought people were still here in August before the kids maybe go back to school and stuff, and then not maybe do it in September when there's that drop off after Labor Day weekend. But not to say I'm totally flexible on the month that we do it, but I think that was my thought.
I think the cultural center will probably be helpful in helping us guide the time of year as well for the artist. So, we
Yeah.
just had a brief discussion with them. So we haven't really gone further. into
Just
it.
when do craft fairs start picking up?
In the fall.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we really don't see this as a craft fair as much as some juried art.
Right.
So we want to make it a little higher end. Is everything okay, Joe?
Yeah, Joe, you have to leave?
No.
So, this is, enhances a little bit, I guess, on the contract from last year. Let me put this in context. My first experience with your contract was last year, and I came in on the tail end of it. So let's assume I really know not too much about this. But my gut reaction is that it's kind of just mirrors what was last year with emphasis on a couple of things that you want to do, but we just went through the process of going through our tourism event plan. So can we not talk about adding, and would you have discussions with us about adding additional responsibilities?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's-
I thought that was
So,
part of our
An
discussion.
there is event coordination included. It's already part of the
Well,
contract.
I think I'd like to take that up a notch and talk about doing a little bit of research and understanding about how we can either enhance the events that we seem to traditionally fund, and then talk about attracting new events and not necessarily, no, I love the new events that you're brainstorming about, but others that could bring more of an additional type of presence. I
So like
suppose.
outside organizations,
An outside
yeah.
organization. At least just to contemplate what that might be and the pros and cons of, for the town. Because it seems to me, I think I'm looking for a little bit more adrenaline coming to this town. It's just, so with, the other piece is, also, I think I think there's been just general discussion among random members about our little tagline. You know, Yarmouth within reach of what every other town. So with that being said, is this the appropriate contract in order to maybe address a contest among everyone to come up with a new slogan for the town?
Yeah, like a rebranding, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, I would start with like simple, but Mary, has
So,
thought about-
so a couple of things. I think I've talked to several of you on the committee and probably even Karen over the years, that right now, until you have a really adequate event space to recruit other companies to come in, they contact the chamber, I don't want to say regularly, but multiple times a year. What does Yarmouth have for us to bring an event to town? We don't have a venue. And hold on, so you will with the drive-in site for an outdoor space. We have also lost, and I've talked to the town administration about this. We have lost a lot of event space in town by losing the Irish Village, you know, that would host 300 people. We don't have anything left in town anymore that's 150 people.
It's unbelievable.
Their capacity through the building inspector may be higher, but it depends what the layout is, right, of the space. So for Jen and I, when we start thinking about bringing like the trolley tour back or the Taste of Yarmouth in some other fashion, we're so limited for what we can bring to Yarmouth. So that's a huge factor for us. We had a great event that approached us in the fall to come to Yarmouth. There's nowhere to send them. Once the drive-in site gets done, I think you're going to see a lot of outside entities start to contact the town of Yarmouth to come there.
Right.
And some really exciting ones, I will say.
But the case in point is Bill Scott brought up the idea of having an environmental day here, invite vendors that are in the environmental field
Oh,
to,
yeah.
well, he suggested Maniquis, but there's some limitations with the Maniquis School, which is now owned by the town.
And it's understudy.
But there's, you know, there's all kinds of, is putting 75, 100 people in a 3 or 4, 500 auditorium gonna be overkill? And then what do? Break out into small classrooms and there's appropriate bathrooms and those type of things.
So with that being said, in the packets in front of you that I brought, there's a mass development grant that would actually help us do site assessment and site readiness and all of that. So take a peek of that and see if that applies. But the other question is tell me why our beaches aren't,
You gotta get.
and the beach parking lot, you gotta go, it considered a venue. Or is it?
You can't, well, we've talked about several things. Number one,
Time you gotta
outdoor
get out.
restricts you to what you can do. There's
Okay.
outdoor lighting.
I think everybody's giving me the wave.
Oh.
So,
Sorry.
We gotta get moving, so.
no, I understand, but what's the next steps with the
Well, I
contract?
think
Because I
there-
would like to expand the role of the chamber
So
to
I think
utilize their.
two things. One
expertise.
is, I think their contract is due to be up in August.
Their contract, yep,
Expires, so,
yep, and I've let Mary know that we're, moving forward,
Yep.
so we've done that. I think the next step is for Mary and I and Jen to sit down and work out the scope, and if you want to provide a budget to go on, that's something that you could do,
us,
yeah.
oh, It's already-
I mean, or we can come back with a proposal.
So
Yeah.
I thought you guys already.
We already did come up with a budget, didn't we? A budget amount.
Okay, so I'm just gonna ask the question. So you budgeted $205,000
So,
going forward.
so at 165 for the marketing contract, that would be only a 10-month contract, so it
Right.
would be from September 1st to June 30th. So that we're now on the town's fiscal year.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the additional 40,000 was for the sand sculpture.
Right,
For
right,
2020.
right.
So we're folding, so I just want to make sure I'm clear and understand everybody's intent. We want to try to fold the sand sculpture into the marketing contract. We can,
Yes.
that's, I just want to be clear.
Yes,
And then we were going to account for, my recollection of the meeting we had in February was we were going to account for inflation.
which,
So,
which would mean an additional amount. I thought we covered that though. No one-
So
Yeah, please.
So
Fresh on memory.
my recollection is that the 165 was going to address that because it was
Right,
only 10
For the
months
10
on the
months.
contract.
okay.
Yeah.
So it's 165, so the
That's
whole
the-
205 is for this purpose.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
is there any
Happy.
Any
I-
more available funds for, for this
There are,
anywhere?
there
Out of
are,
what buckets?
there are. Well, there's little bits.
Allocated has 88,000 still in it for.
In the unallocated, okay,
Oh, that's a,
so can we
that's
tap
an,
into
that's
that?
an error there.
Oh.
On the spreadsheet at 64. Would be in the unallocated. Thank you, Joe, for seeing that.
Okay,
Thank you.
so I guess my comments to this group is that that we have a little, a room in the budget to think what else? And then, and for to
Yeah,
consider about prioritizing what else might be
Yeah.
and using the chamber's expertise to help us get there sooner than later.
okay. I agree. So how do we want to do this? Do we have to have another meeting? I'm asking you, do we have to have another meeting or can we have a couple of people talk with you?
You
Yeah,
could
'cause
do
we have
that.
to move.
I would suggest that Mary and Jen decide. So Maria made a couple of asks that are interesting and maybe give some feedback on the new tagline. Whether that's
So if I can say, so years ago, before I even
Right.
came to.
It
the
was a big
chamber,
to-do.
I don't know what year it was.
It's a huge.
I could
Yeah.
look back. It's
I think it's 2008, maybe.
might even be
There was
before
a
that.
rebranding project for the town, which is where your
Yeah.
current tagline came from. And that was at a $40,000 grant at that time.
back then.
And I think Jen, and you can disagree with me if you like publicly.
Ah.
But you'll pay for it later.
Never, never. But I think that is out of our scope. I really believe that you would need to bring in an outside marketing firm that can do a much bigger assessment of. the
No, I
town
disagree.
than
I think we have a contest. You know, we have smart, exciting, wonderful
Okay.
people in this town. And I would just think about it, not for the moment, but just because I mentioned a couple of things, doesn't mean that that's something that's in your wheelhouse or that you would be energized to do. So I think I would be looking for some feedback, from Mary and Jen, what, yes, if there was a little bit more money in the budget, what could you do to enhance or improve your plan? Either enhance or additional, and then just for maybe my sake, consider running a contest to rebrand Yarmouth and see what we get, including the jingle, because I've already actually.
Did you start one?
I did.
I think it's. always-
And you'd want to obviously bring the selectmen into that one, that
Yeah.
conversation with the
Yeah.
tagline.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah. Right, but to see if we could.
I'm
give them a-
I'm just
if
saying,
We
we-
give them a proposal. I mean, what does anybody else think? Is it silly? I mean, is it worth?
Let's see what they come back with for some idea. I think it's a good idea. Let's see what they come back with, it. They being the chamber, and doesn't mean that you have to do it. You could. You know,
No, I
be a
would, I
contract.
mean, I would
Yeah.
encourage ideas from you guys as well, like how can we be helpful? So for example, Karen, when she came to us and said, we really need you to take over desire you to take over the banner program again. And she has new ideas about it, right? Like, those are helpful for us as well, because we want your ideas. So we will certainly brainstorm and.
And we'd
please
love
send
your
us
members'
ideas.
ideas.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, an economic development component would be nice too, something to address. What everybody talks about often, empty storefronts, blight and things. I don't know, we're part of that, but the chamber's gotta be part of that too, I would think, in some way, no?
We certainly are, but not under this contract.
Well, if Maria is offering to expand your contract, then
I'm merely suggesting, I'm not offering. I wish I
offering
I wish I
to
had.
consider.
Well, Peter, the chamber was, I guess, used a lot of their time. We came up with a vacant storefront program that's kind of just sitting. Another item that actually I'd like to revisit. But yeah, it was to leverage existing state programs, starting with that first. So, yeah.
I just thought of something I would add
Oh.
that came into it, so.
Okay, so having said all that, we have some ideas, they'll have some ideas, we get back together. But to help Karen out, we're gonna have to get before the end of August to have another meeting so she can wrap all this up into a contract, so. I think we're going to meet during the summer, we're not gonna take the summer off, so it looks like meeting in July and maybe one in August too, so. Anybody want to shoot some dates around right now? Joe? You okay?
Do you want to just do that by email when everybody
Okay, that's
So we
fine,
can go.
can,
that's fine, she got to, all right,
well, we have other things on the agenda.
yeah, I don't think we're gonna be able to get them all, but we'll try our best to get. All right, so you'll send out some dates, potential dates, one in July, one in August, we can get together. All right,
Okay.
good, thank you,
All right.
good.
Thank you.
I'm gonna do the roll like shit.
Okay, let's, which
The,
one
the thing that
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, sir.
I want to prepare you for
is?
is the
number-
meeting with the
four.
selectmen.
Okay, do you guys mind if we hold off on the special event program? Schedule, if we're gonna meet in July and August? Is it okay if we hold off until one of those meetings? Yes, no?
Well, that's coming up for the selectmen, what, next week though, right?
So it's part, yeah, and it's absolutely part of it. So I think that you in your materials. I think that what the selectmen want to hear, and I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't know what the questions would be. I think they want to hear, when are you going to release the money? And how much money are you going to release? And so you know that you have $140,000 budgeted for the special event program.
Yeah.
And we just pick a day and back into it. And Maria,
I'm
you have a
confused.
look
Why do
on
we
your
have to- Why do
face.
we have to release it? It's been appropriated, right?
It's been appropriated. By release, I mean, make available to applicants
Oh.
who want to know that
When
they
the-
have
I
the
didn't
money.
understand. Okay.
Yeah,
Which totals 88,858, right? That's that.
no, the 88, that 88,000 is incorrect. So what you have here is Karen's new draft of the budget, trying to make it more simple. So I was working on this today and that's,
So the
Sorry?
biggest thing about that, the substantive changes was to move up the date.
Yep.
That's really the substantive issue. The allocation of the monies and,
Are we looking at?
and then it's, basically the rest of it was, do we want, well, there are, an expectation of matching funds and
that you're gonna
breaking
dump.
out, requirements for existing events, with a boilerplate of criteria, but then refining it for existing events and to address sustainability. Like if, is this gonna be on our radar for the next 20 some odd years versus discussing as another set of criteria for new events. So fine points, but I think, Joe, your biggest concern was getting this out there. sooner or later.
And I know too, I guess, I was watching some of the oldest selectmen's meetings the other day, so I watched the May one, which I
Oh,
guess is
good.
what spawned this.
Yeah.
So the St. Patrick's Committee had gone before the selectmen. And they had requested, I believe like August 1st is that they wanted to have the. Sometime in August is what they wanted to have it out, and I think they were actually looking for a
60.
60 or 60 was 60, a $60,000 dedicated earmark for them. In August, so that way they know to do their budget. And that was after we got together. I just noticed like 3 or 4 days ago, I watched this, and I guess that's what has spawned that. One or two of the selectmen, I think, were kind of, on board with having that discussion at least.
I think just to update everybody, and I think we talked about this yesterday, and I've certainly talked about it with Steve. The agenda item has morphed a bit into not just a special event update, but the tourism fund update. So I think that today you've done, good stuff. We have a great update on the marketing stuff. We have a great update on physical improvements. And I think we have enough based on what you and Maria have put together. We have a good update that, I said special events. Committee recognizes need to make funding commitments earlier than in the past and is working on announcement of funding availability for calendar. I said calendar 24. I know you guys were talking about doing 2 rounds. I don't know. I think it might be helpful to have a conversation with the chamber as well, unless you already have.
Right.
On 1 round or 2.
I think this year, coming up now, 1
Mhm.
round, and then look and figure out how we would actually
think about it.
do a 2 round,
Yeah.
because we don't want to,
For fiscal
behind, right.
25.
we don't want to get behind
Just-
the ball
yeah,
at this point.
From past experience, everybody wants to know now, and the calendar year's been kind of pretty good, but if you want to change it, that's great. And then I just said anticipate applications to be available. We'll pick a date. We can make it work. We'll have a meeting and figure it out. As long as if you want to put this on the next meeting in July sometime, there's no problem with
Yeah.
making it available in either August or, well, let's say September, very beginning of September.
Yeah.
Well, no, we were talking about having a deadline of September 15th
To get the
Did you-
applications
to
in,
get the
To
application.
get them in,
and then by
that's
the,
fine.
That's we were trying to.
That's fine, I
accelerate it.
think, and I think there's not that many big changes, so the forms are good, the advertising's good.
So we gotta move fast if we want to get them out.
Right.
Have the application to
Mhm.
15 back to us.
right, and then, we have to make the recommendation, then it has to go to the selectmen too, so that's another couple weeks on top of whatever we
So
do,
I-
so.
Well,
I don't have a problem with authorizing you, actually, to make a final decision to get this out. With the proviso that it be, be reviewed by the chamber. I mean, using this, so and I think it's totally appropriate if nobody else has a problem with that. To just give you the authority to make the final application
Okay,
approval.
so are we sticking with the September 15th deadline to have them back? in?
That's a discussion for everybody, and even Karen, and we kind of threw it upon her last week to think about. But Mary,
Because if it's just,
what do you think?
well, just before we go to Mary. If we go with September 15th, I'm just thinking out. We have to back off of that. We have to give a 30-day advertising period. And it's got to get approved by the board of selectmen, so.
but I think that you can, we've never had the Board of Selectmen approve.
Yeah.
That part, they
Well, that's-
approved the contracts.
Yeah, so we're
At the
okay.
end, your awards.
So if we just hold on, if we
Yeah.
had, then we have to by August, well, we want to get out. By August 1st, I would think, get the applications out. And have them due back in by the 15th, or I'd say the end of September.
So we came up with a tentative schedule, backing into the Board of Selectmen making the final approval now that the charge has been changed, right? They have to sign off
They sign off on all the contracts.
on all the contracts. So we backed into it, said if the Board of Selectmen, I said BOD, but it's Board of Selectmen, is October 30th, right? Then we would have to review these applications by October 15th. I mean, it's an aggressive timetable, but that's the whole point of having this on the agenda.
So you built in a month to review?
Yeah.
Okay,
But that
Well,
doesn't
it's-
mean,
that's,
But that
that's
means-
long, I think that's longer than traditional.
but
So usually we get them, we organize them, we make them available, and you guys can get them and start doing interviews the
Right.
next week almost.
right, but that, because it says a month later, doesn't mean we have to stick to them.
No,
We can do whatever.
right.
Yeah, okay, right. So,
And I
Right.
can look at staffing
say
to make
by.
sure that we've got people to take in the application,
Right.
just.
Right.
So my discussion is to see if we are comfortable with giving one or more members the authority to approve this with the after prior conversations with the chamber and Karen.
Yeah.
That's all.
All right.
I don't know. Anybody want to?
Mary, I think we gotta meet soon.
Joe Manning, do you have any questions or anything on that?
No, I think that you guys are on the right track.
Okay,
I mean, we did throw in some other criteria stuff that we had talked about too, and again, this was all for discussion. You know, it's like a minimum award of like $2,500, because we've had some small ones before. And then like, we were thinking maybe a maximum of 30, but now that is only half of what, you know, for say the parade wants. You know, but, and actually requiring matching funds, like a 25% matching fund, so we're not completely. You know, the people have to come up with some sort of money on their own. There was some, you know, so there are some other things that we threw in also for discussion, and again, it was just. You know, for discussion purposes, that the committee can decide some of the minutia. And, you know, when it comes down to the actual application, there were a couple questions I kind of wanted to add to the form to, you know, keep pretty much the current form, but just add a few things. You know, and one of them was like on sustainment, you know, if you didn't receive funds, you know, can you have your event this year? And some of this would be more towards those events that we've been funding for years and years, is that if we don't fund you this year, can you still do your event? We don't fund, you know. And then maybe even a second question, if you can do it for a year, can you do it for more than that? So some just questions about that, just trying to gather a little more information for some of these ones that are, not necessarily for the newer ones, but a different track to get a little more data, I guess, on the ones that we have funded for years and years and years. But that wasn't part of necessarily this, that would be.
What I did, I gave
Oh,
you
you did, oh, that was at the end.
sort of, criteria for new events, like sustainability, how would we actually? Well, this is why we would need the chamber's expertise to frame the right kind of questions.
Right, exactly how you want to, the wording. or
And
whatever.
what's important to this this organization for carrying out the charge of the tourism fund, right? So we don't just all throw it away and
Right.
one.
so two things. I think we have, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we have enough information to work out something with the Board of Selectmen for the meeting coming up,
Mhm.
right? As far as this
Yeah,
goes?
what I was gonna suggest is that, you know, so I just went through the three main points, maybe with the fourth point about the economic development reports. I'll draft something, I've started doing it, and I would ask that the committee is fine with Steve signing off on.
Yeah.
Whatever I draft.
Yeah. Is it okay?
I'll make a motion that the chairman, do I have to make a
Do
motion?
we have,
To
a-
give you the
do we need a
authority.
motion? Okay, all right.
Well, yeah, if I'm giving you my vote.
Okay.
You don't want it?
I mean, so we're gonna meet again in July or whatever to kind of hammer more of this out, right?
We,
More
that's going to
specifics.
be my next suggestion, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep. All right, so,
Then you don't need a vote, because we're gonna hammer it out the next meeting.
yes,
Fine.
Right.
Gotcha.
okay. Good. So then the next thing is, we need to pick a meet, we can do that. Karen can send.
Do that remotely, I'll,
Right,
maybe
good.
we'll do a, if people have blocks of time, because it's vacation season. There's blocks of time that you're unavailable, and you can send those along to me first. That would be helpful, because we won't pick dates that don't work. We'll go for the most. Make the most people
Good.
be able to attend.
Good. All right,
Oh, Joe's got his hand up.
Joe, sorry, buddy. You're up.
Yeah, no worries, sorry. The St. Patrick's Day Parade folks basically went over our heads, right? Is that what Joe, you saw in the meeting?
I mean, I believe the selectmen asked them to a meeting to discuss the parade.
Right, but that was based upon some rumblings and some equivocation that if we didn't do X, they were gonna do Y, which, you know, meant that they were gonna look for other towns that were more receptive. That's how I think they got in front of the board, correct?
I honestly don't know. I just watched what was on the video, so I'd encourage everybody to just, watch that part of it in the video.
So I don't begrudge them because I understand the constraints that they're up against in terms of trying to book bands, in terms of trying to get this straightened out before March 17th or thereabouts. I'm curious to know that there was some discussion, Joe, that we had, and I think that it was when Mary was still on the board, how we put some metrics to the impact of these events. And, you know, how does an event like the parade substantiate their value to the point where they're asking for more than double what they've received from us, and they're asking for more than double what they've received, and they're actually asking us to move up our time frame to accommodate them. So I don't think that, I'm not saying that they don't provide value to the shoulder season, but I'm just asking, how do we quantify that? Or are we going to be back in this situation again where they're going to be asking the select board to do something on our behalf next year?
Okay, so can we talk about that at our next
So
meeting?
yeah, sure. I just wanted to bring that up because
And it,
There, I'm checking.
if the,
part of it's our fault, I think, because, you know, the work that Maria and Joe did is probably overdue. And that's probably what precipitated the situation between our committee and the parade and others. So I think that I'm really excited to see a new sort of pipeline established. But if we're going to establish the new pipeline, I kind of also want to, oh, sorry about that.
But we were a little behind this year. I mean, we didn't make decisions until like January this year, right? So we were later than I think we've ever been this year in doing.
Right. But, you know, just trying to make a requisite part of the application, you know, quantifying the value that they bring, you know, how many hotel rooms, how many meals, how many, you know, people, how many, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Something that if they're gonna start making demands of us, I think that we probably should be making demands of them as well, is kind of my point.
I was just gonna say, I think that some of Joe's comments and Joe, the other Joe, you know, we can certainly fold those into the memo for the Board of Selectmen too.
Yep.
That you're working on this and you're also, looking to change things up and looking for applicants to be able to better measure impact.
right,
Because I mean, if we're not clear, every time an applicant doesn't get the award they want, they're gonna go to the select board. I mean, I just think
Right.
it sets up a really bad precedent for this to be happening the way it's happening right now.
right.
Yeah, and I don't know, I don't know that they went, I don't know if that was their intention. I think it was kind of maybe more like, this is our wish list if we can have it that way. But again, it's just, I wasn't at the meeting. I'm gonna assume that when the committee meets with the selectmen, or Steve meets with the selectmen in a week or two, that this is probably gonna come out. And so we'll have a lot more information when are we tentatively on
That's
the
the
11th?
11.
So I think that, I don't know. If we all sit in the audience, we don't have a forum issue, right? If we all just go.
No, and you can post a meeting, that's fine. It's nice. I think
It's nice
it's
to have.
personally, I think it's nice if you all,
That's right.
or as many of you that can show up.
Public
It's
event.
nice.
Yeah, we've
don't
done
have
that
to-
before.
Okay.
We're
Yeah.
not.
Thanks for indulging me the time. I appreciate it.
The only other thing related to that, we can discuss it later, I just wanted to bring with everyone's attention. Is in section 4 of the acts that created this money. It refers to, in the first sentence, number of activities, but services, the word services comes up in there. I asked that question to Karen. And that's the backdrop of it, Karen. What is services? What are services? How are they defined in there? I'm not looking for an answer right now.
Oh, yeah,
But
no,
one we could talk about, because that has some bearing on what some of the requests are coming at us. Specifically, what services are, is it police and fire overtime that impacts some of these grant applications? So keep that in the back of your mind. We'll get some more clarification on that.
and that's what,
Because quite frankly, that some of the money that we give out is small amounts, but a big piece of that small amount goes to police and fire, and it's nothing to
And
denigrate.
administrative.
It's nothing to denigrate police and fire. They're absolutely needed at some of these events, but it's a big chunk of some of these applications that, right? So we need to grapple with that. That's.
And we discussed about, being able to understand what those costs would be in order to, attract people If they have an expectation versus coming in, going through the whole process and going, what the? This is taking up half of my budget. So that's another aspect of, that's not for this first, but for 2025, for the next iteration.
Yeah.
To really grapple with these issues, including the high cost of.
Doing business with the town, right? So if somebody has a brand new event, if somebody said wanted to do a first night and all of a sudden you need $15,000 in police and fire. So before you even walk in the door, here's your $15,000 bill, you gotta pay the town. It's,
Plus an admin fee on top of that, right?
yeah, right, plus an admin fee on top of that. So, those are those things is we want to encourage new events. But the price of doing business with the town and, right, again, we need police and fire at these events.
Mhm.
In this permit processes and everything else, but. I think we do need to be cognizant of that, because we do, and I think we all probably want more events and.
Yeah, we just
Again,
said
we
it.
want to make Yarmouth stand out.
Okay. Thank you for that. Good work. It was much appreciated. Believe me, really. Okay, nothing else. I know Karen's got to get
Motion
going.
to adjourn.
And can I have a second?
Second.
You can have a roll call.
Peter Slovak.
Danielle Nichol,
Yes,
Maria Marasco, aye. Courtney, aye.
Yes.
Joe Gibbs, aye.
Steve O'Neill, aye.
Aye.
And Joe.
Yeah, don't forget Joe.
Aye. It's all about you. Aye.
Amazing, 7-0.
Karen, you didn't hand,
That is great.
packing up?
No, I just need to be deliberate. Keep my paper,
You upset?
keep my paper all
Not
organized.
We've had a full.
I know.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.